Today, we're going to be setting up TrueNAS Core on the R720XD with 12 drives. These are going to be 10 terabyte drives. And we're going to be doing this in a really intelligent manner as far as the VDEV distribution and layout to provide both performance and redundancy. And we're going to be also doing a live data migration from the existing TrueNAS scale that I have over to the TrueNAS Core machine. I'm also going to show you how you can set up Windows shares, which is a topic that somehow, like most of the YouTubers, don't really cover that often in a super concise manner, and it's really quick to do. So I decided to tackle that one while we're at it today as well. We're going to also set up some NFS shares that will be used for transferring between the two machines, and we're going to be using Rsync to do that. All right, I hope you're ready. Buckle up. We've got the ZFS 2.2.2 and the latest TrueNAS Core release. If you are looking at the ZFS bug that's been out, you can check back on the video that I released last night that talked about that. Formulated a plan of action today using Rsync for the copy because that doesn't actually copy in the traditional like CP manner. That uses a different process for copying. And so that totally 100% will give me security. I also have a couple of commands that I'm going to share with you that you can use. I can't say they are going to tell you whether or not you did incur any data corruption. But again, the data corruption bug, pretty unlikely something that you're going to run into. Most likely that's going to hit very fringe use cases, and most people are okay. Still keeping my eyes on Proxmox and definitely waiting for Proxmox to have a updated 2.2.2 release that does not just cherry pick and retrofit. However, of course, they do have their wonderful PVE ZFS sync, Z-Sync, which is something that I utilize myself a lot. And so that's one of the places where having that HA, quasi-HA failover that you get with Proxmox for the ZFS file system with the Z-Sync capabilities that they have is great. But does that use the B clone is a big question mark in my mind. And so I will be waiting until I see that released before I go ahead and update all the Proxmox systems. But there is that major retrofit of Proxmox systems that I now have some time here that I'll be able to do. Strap in, let's get started. All right, so today we're installing TrueNAS Core 13.0-U 6.1. It is updated to ZFS version 2.2.2. So I've already got that ISO downloaded here. The R720XD is starting up, and we're going to map this device and load our virtual media here. A function for a virtual CD drive here. However, a normal CD or DVD or USB would work here just equally well. I'm going to be entering the BIOS boot menu, and from there, I'm going to be selecting that virtual boot media, just like you will be for whatever you're using. Of course, if you have an iDRAC, the virtual media is a pretty nice addition to it. So after we select that, the boot up process will start here, and eventually it will get us to a screen here. Just let that complete. And it's going to continue its boot up process. And then we're going to actually get to the part where we can choose some options for setup. So that's going to be the important part. It's pretty quick here. Definitely a lightweight distro, not super heavy. So click install. And if you had connected a monitor and keyboard to it, it would be presenting just what you're seeing here on the iDRAC. So we're going to be installing two SATA SSDs that are in the back of this, and that'll provide us redundancy in case one of them is to fail out or something like that. And we're going to click yes and yes on that, and that will of course erase any of the data that's on them, but that's totally fine. And this is going to give us the place where we're going to enter our password. Now, with TrueNAS Scale, your username is admin. With TrueNAS Core, your username is root. This is an older machine, so we're going to go ahead and boot via BIOS, which is what we have it set up. We're also going to disable the swap. And whenever it gets to this part, since we're installing over virtual media, it's going to take a little while for it to transfer all the bits over the wire. And as soon as that's done, that network activity will stall out, and then we will have our TrueNAS installation up and running. It didn't take too long. And we're going to go ahead and reboot here. And after it comes back up, there's one piece of information we're going to need for it to get. It's going to go ahead and grab a DHCP address, which you can go ahead and change later on to a static IP if you'd like to. And it looks like .150 is the address that it's giving us for that. So we're going to go ahead, pull up a tab here, And then we will be accessing that website and entering in our credentials. Once we're inside here, we'll be able to continue with the rest of the configuration of our system. All right, go ahead and close this out now. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set up our storage pool. And you can see we have no storage pools available so far. We're going to create a new pool here, and we're going to give it a name. And we're going to also add a cache device to this. So we have a couple of SSDs that are in here. These are some actually pretty good performing SSDs. If I sort by capacity here really quick, we'll be able to uncheck those. And we're going to add the disks over here to a data VDEV, but we're not going to add all of them like this just at first here. We're going to actually add a smaller subsection of them because we want to be able to have a higher performance level than we would be able to get if we just added those all together and did like a RAID Z or something like that. So this is a good chance for us to look at how we can perform just a little bit better. So we're going to have a RAID Z, but we're going to have multiple RAID Zs. And so we're going to repeat that with the remaining 3 additional VDEVs of 9 terabyte drives here. So we'll repeat that right there. Cool. And now we've got our cache VDEV down here that we still need to populate. So we'll grab our remaining 2 disks, come on down here and toss that one in. Click on create and confirm. All right, so you can see that we have 72.15 TB of space here, and we also have actually a really good fast system if we're looking at what kind of speeds we'll be able to attain on it. Now, let's go ahead and take a look really quick at some of the pool options. If you were running all SSDs, you'd want to set up auto trim on that. As well, we've also got the ability to add VDEVs here. So if we click on add VDEV, you can add additional devices to this that are special devices after the fact. So the next thing that we're going to do is come down here and we're going to add a data set. And the data set we're going to call WinShare. And the sync that we're going to set for this is disabled because we have really good battery backup here on this system. So not at all concerned with it running out of battery power during its actual like commits from memory to disk. That is a lot of memory that we have here, but it still will happen incredibly fast. As far as our sensitivity here, that'll change when we select SMB. You see that go down to insensitive. You could also leave this as generic if you want to be able to mount this with multiple file systems. As a matter of fact, that might be pretty popular for me here, so I think that makes sense to do, actually. I'm going to go ahead and do that on my own here, now that I think about it. I'm going to set the record size to 1 megabyte because everything that I store on this will be quite large. The ACL mode, if you look here, if you were going for a strictly in SMB share, you would want to go ahead and set that to restricted. You'd also probably want to go ahead and set this to SMB because that'll mark your case sensitivity to insensitive and lock your ACL mode to restricted. However, I'm going to go for a generic share here because this way I can set up an NFS as well as a SMB share here. I'm going to take you through the steps of setting up the SMB share here tonight on it. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create a account here. And we can do that by clicking on users and add. And we're going to create a user called DSP. Give me a password there. Now, if you look here, you can see that it's going to make a new primary group and assign a user ID automatically. So you don't need to do anything additional. And I'm going to grant that group write access as well. That way, if I want to add in some more people, that'll be something that can happen really easily. I'm going to add this down here to the WinShare, and I'm also going to check that this is a Microsoft account. If you want to have login permissions for this, then you can set this to like SH or something like that. But if you do not want this person to be able to SSH in, you would set that to no login. Click on submit. All right, so now a user and group has been created. Let's go to sharing here real quick. We're going to set up our Windows SMB share. Click on add. And as we scroll on down here, we can see that we have a home user share here, which we're actually not going to make that the share. We're going to use this as the share, the win share right here. And you could give it a description if you wanted to. There's also some additional advanced options, but for the most part, you don't need to mess with any of those. So we'll go back to basic options. Make sure you have enabled checked. I don't know why you would want to have that unchecked right off the bat, but just make sure it's checked. And we're going to click enable the service. Now, when we close this, we're going to need to configure an ACL. So there's a couple ways to do this. You can select a default ACL like open, which is probably not what you want to do. And you can create a custom ACL, which is what we are going to do. So we'll click on continue here, and we're going to add an ACL item to the bottom. And we're going to do a user as the who, and the user will be DSP. And the ACL type will be just, leave the rest of it like it is. However, you could also do a group, and that group could also be DSP. So if I have multiple people, like Digital Space Cat working on this with me, that can help them get access to this as well. So that's all you got to do. Click save on that. And now you're done with setting this up. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go and check our IP address for our server. And we can see that that is 192.168.1.50. And so we're going to copy that. And we're going to come over to our Explorer here and type in / and paste that in and hit / one more time. It's going to ask you, so it's going to try to give you like whatever credentials you had in there. If you remember, I did not have Digital Spaceport all spelled out. I just had DSP. So make sure you enter the correct credentials. Hit space on that, and there we go. So now we have our Windows share up and running. That was really fast. So if you look inside the DSP folder, you can see that there's quite a few things. If you are displaying your full hidden items, you're going to see those. If you uncheck that, you will not see those. So you may want to uncheck that. It's up to you whether you want to have a home share here or not. You don't have to have one, but that's pretty much it. At this point, you can go ahead and start creating folders here. So we'll call one all backups. And if you're able to create a folder, then very likely you'll be able to create inside here a text document as well. And so we'll call this hello. And at the inception of it, we will type in hit subscribe, please. And if you guys like this content, go ahead and do hit subscribe. Let me save that really quick, close it out here. Now, let's go ahead and take it one step further. Map a network drive. We're going to leave this as the Z, and we're going to connect it using different credentials than our default Windows credentials, because I think I'm signed in on this machine like with a Windows account or something like that. So yeah, don't want to use that. If you have a local account, that might work out for you. But there you go. So now we've got this mapped also, so you can see that we've got 72.5 terabytes free on this drive as well. How high performance is this? Well, let's check that out. I think there's really only one way to fully know. So that's going to be for us to actually move some data over to it. And so you can see on the TrueNAS instance that I have here, that is the scale instance that is in a impacted version here. You can see the 23.10.0.1. I am going to be mounting a remote NFS share and moving files off of this over onto the TrueNAS Core instance that we have that should be immune to this problem. As you can see here, I've got quite a bit of RAM in this, also 383 gigabytes reporting, a little bit more than the 181 gigabytes that I have over here. You can see definitely though that extra 8 terabytes that I have setting locally on my disks that I need to move over is for sure going to push me well over the 50% threshold, and actually pretty close to the 80% threshold where things really start to get bad with ZFS. So having the 50% margin be where I try to target for high performance for my ZFS array is one of the things. Now, how fast are we going to go? We're going to move some packets. Oh yeah, we're going to move some packets. Now, before you judge me for having an actual folder of ISOs that are actually ISOs, yeah, I know. Just don't knock it until you try it. One of these days, you're going to try it and you're going to like it. We're going to put this in the all backups folder here, and we'll toss this in here to our ISO share. And our performance is looking pretty good here. I like that. If we can keep that in the 1 gigabyte range, that's pretty darn good, considering that we have not a ton of disks here on this. And yeah, this is acceptable performance in my opinion for this connection that we have to this machine right now. Have done no tuning as far as the NICs on it or anything like that. And also it is running some absolute potatoes at the moment. This has got some, I mean, just, they couldn't be worse CPUs. It's got 2630Ls. These are capped at 2 gigahertz. So that's going to definitely impact your maximum write speed. As well, my computer that I'm writing this from is connected just incorrectly. Check this out. And if you're noticing that you have some slow speeds on a transfer, definitely make sure that you're checking out your network adapter is negotiating at its full width. And as you can see here, while we are negotiating at PCIe 3 speeds, that's the 8.0 signifying that, the gigabits per second, our speed is also limited here to 4 width, so X4. So that means I have PCIe bifurcation enabled still on this slot that I have this card in. So I'm going to fix that really quick. And so you can see that is definitely a problem that you don't want to have. If you do have that problem, make sure you correct it. I am too busy to let this ZFS bug stop me. And I have a successful mitigation strategy in place here to get back to feeling confident in my data's integrity. So this is how you can get yourself up and running with TrueNAS Core and migrate off of TrueNAS Scale if you need to have this happen immediately. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn on my SSH and click on configure here really quick. I'm going to allow myself to log in as root really fast on this device because I'm going to get this set up. Then I'll make sure to go back and disable that. Did not check start automatically. So on a reboot, it will also restart that. And this will allow me to set up my remote NFS shares and move the data over from one machine to the other. And so we're going to pull up our terminal here and SSH into our new machine. And that's going to be root at 192.168.1.150. And add that fingerprint in and give the password that you have for your user. So now that we're logged into our TrueNAS Core, we're going to do a mkdir, and we're going to create a folder, and we're going to call this Migrate. That'll be just /migrate that we've created there. And the next thing that we're going to do is go ahead and mount our NFS share point over on our remote system to that. So that's actually just mount -t NFS and then the IP address of our server 192.168.1.149. And then we're going to put in our share path, which we can grab from over here. Pretty easy. You want to have one of those, and then we're going to give it a space at the end and type /migrate. That'll mount the remote directory to our local folder. And so now if we cd into migrate and do an ls, you can see that I've got all of my work stuff in here. Okay, so we're almost to the end, and we're going to be copying our data over with Rsync. We're going to use a couple of flags that will give us a status update on what the total progress is also. So we'll be using some things that will speed up this at the same time. You might, if you have slower connections, want to use compression. However, since I've got such a potato processor in these things, disabling compression on the Rsync is something that saves a little bit of overhead. I did test it out both ways, and I definitely saw that disabling the compression on the Rsync transfer was faster. Now, yes, these are connected with 40 gigabit. However, that will not be the internal transfer speed that we're seeing. There is data coming off of the one share, which is the existing share on TrueNAS scale, going over to the new TrueNAS Core pool, which again, two birds with one stone here, a little bit of extra data security, but another huge thing that was going to have to happen at any rate was I needed a larger pool, because moving over and getting into the 80% range is not where you want to be for performance if you are expecting performance on a TrueNAS Z pool based setup. Well, any ZFS based setup, that's really kind of into the, things start to get sloppy. So 50% is ideal. 80%, you need to start migrating to a larger pool pretty much. That is going to give me quite a bit of growth area for this pool that I'm moving to here, probably an extra year of data or something along those lines. I'm hopeful that I won't be having to do another migration really quickly here. But let's take a look at what we're going to do to get this data transferred over. So really quick, I'm going to talk about some of the flags that you're seeing here. So we're going to be using Rsync. And if you know, it's going to tell us that our directory that we are currently inside is the Migrate folder. And we're going to use the Rsync command with the flags A, V, and P. And we're also going to use --info equal progress2. This will give us a ongoing status of the transfer for the expected ETA for the entirety of everything. And as you can see up here, I've been running this for a while now. And we're also going to use another flag, and we're going to be transferring the whole file. And that will actually speed things up a little bit as well. We are not using compression on this at this moment. So that's another thing that you may or may not want to turn off. Now, the next thing is I'm going to hit space and put in an asterisk. That asterisk is basically going to look recursively. That's part of the A flag. Down the entire folder chain here. It's already got a list of things. And when it sees files that need to be transferred that don't exist already over here, it's going to transfer them over. And the directory that it will be transferring to is the mount, storage, and backups. So we'll get that command running here right now. And you can see it picking right back up where it left off with the prior transfer. So this one was in flight when I stopped it, and it is now resuming where it left off. So you can see that it's essentially doing an XFR and then a number here. That's going to be counting up the files that it's transferred while it's been doing this. And your accuracy on the estimation will get closer and closer. Not the current file you're on necessarily, but if you look at the preceding ones, that'll start to give you a really good idea. But it does need to run a while to start getting towards that accuracy point for the outcome of what the transfer will be. And it can, of course, vary by quite a bit. So when you restart it here, you're going to notice that the times are creeping up quite steadily as it's doing more and more transfers. Eventually, sometime around the probably where we left off here, 2.5 hour mark, I should be done with the data migration. Very excited with that, because then I can get on to copying over the remainder of my data that needs to come off of some machines so that I can perform some maintenance on them. We are going to check really quick here what the bclone status is on the existing TrueNAS pool. So if you do Z pool list, it'll tell you the name of your pools, and you can see the boot pool. That's just your boot drives that we have here. And also we've got backups. Now the backups is what we're interested in coming off of the TrueNAS scale here, because this is pretty much where all the data was living. So you can see that was, of course, capacity at about 44%. And that was, by the time we move over 8 more terabytes, going to be pushing it pretty far into the near 80% range. So we're going to run this command here, and this is going to get all from the pool. So you would want to plug in your pool name here and then do a pipe and grep bclone. This will tell you how many bclones have happened on your pool. Great news for me. It looks like my backups have used essentially 0 bclones. Now, I can't say that this is definitively, I am in the clear, but this does make me feel significantly better that an action that could have incurred corruption has not occurred. Bclone being one of the block cloning new things that has come about recently, and probably one of the things to keep an eye on a little bit more. Again, follow back with that video that I just released if you're interested in a little bit more information about that. And so there we have it. We are almost to the point where we have our data back to a place where I'm going to feel really good about it as far as its integrity. As well, I am onward with my plans and moving forward with the renovations that I'm making to the data center. I covered that in a video about 2 or 3 videos ago. Maybe it was even a live stream, but those plans are still in effect, and just modifying those plans, I'm glad I made those plans, does help me strategize what I'm doing now and the steps that I need to take as a result of this bug and the mitigations that I had to put into place, because I've got a very fixed window of time to get those accomplished in, and I don't like working at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. So getting those done immediately is something that I'm doing, and I'm just filming the content as I'm doing it. I hope you guys are enjoying this. Let me know in the comments below what you're thinking and what you are doing right now with your home lab and your home data center and your garage data center. And if you don't have a garage data center or a home data center, what you're doing with your computers. I find those things interesting. I've got a bunch of VMs that I need to get into and check next. So that video is coming up almost immediately, where I'm going to do some investigation. We're going to be checking the status of the boot pool and the other things. So if you notice, the boot pool was degraded on the TrueNAS scale instance that we're migrating from. That's expected because it was a 2-drive system. I yanked one of the drives, put it into a USB carrier. That way I was able to take 8 disks, because it was just 8 disks before the pool that I had, and put that into the R520 and use the USB drive to boot from. That way I was able to set that up so that I can migrate to the larger pool, which is 10 terabyte drives now instead of those 4 terabyte drives, and it's 12 of them. And the performance has been actually really good. I am incredibly happy with the performance that I'm seeing on this. So sound off, let me know what your setup's like if you are setting up ZFS pools, and how you like to get performance out of your setup. We will be getting into Proxmox immediately. You guys are following along in almost near real time with Digital Spaceport as I am getting these bits moved. And I hope you are having a great rest of your weekend. I'll check you guys out next time.